make sure we remember, okay, is that I is equal to the square root of -1. Okay, we need to know that. I is equal to the square root of -1. So we're going to take today, and instead of just doing like solving by square root equations like we did yesterday, we're actually going to go and we're going to do quadratic formula, okay, with negative square roots. The first thing we're going to look at, though, is we're going to look at the discriminant. So this is something we actually talked about first half of the unit, okay, and we did it just a little bit, not a lot. But the discriminant is actually part of the quadratic formula. So the discriminant of the quadratic formula is a number value that reveals both the number and the types of quadratic roots the problem has. So the discriminant's formula is D is equal to B squared minus 4AC. And if you look over here at our quadratic formula, our discriminant is the part that is inside the square root. Okay, so the part that is inside the square root actually tells us how many and what type of solutions we're going to have. So if we look when the discriminant is greater than 0, so anytime the discriminant is a positive number, we're going to have two solutions and they are going to be real. Okay, the only difference is that if we have a perfect square as our discriminant, we can take the square root, so it's going to make that to be a real rational number. Whereas if it's not a perfect square, it will be an irrational number, which that just means that our answer will have a square root in it. So that's all that means. It's going to have a square root.
It was cold in your room.
I'm so sorry, dear. It's 66 degrees, apparently. I can't control it. The air is set to 70, and it just does what it wants. So, now, for D equals 0. So, when the discriminant is 0, that means we're only going to have one root. That one's the one that occurs when it's the vertex is on the axis, the x-axis. And so, that one will be a real rational root. But if the discriminant is less than 0, we're going to have two imaginary roots. Okay, so we're going to focus today on the imaginary roots. We're going to do quadratic practice with those. So we're going to start with this section right here. It is all about just us finding the discriminant, plugging it into our calculator, and deciding what type of root it is. That's all it wants us to do. So for number 19, we're going to find our discriminant. So we're going to do B squared minus 4 times A times C. What is B?
12.
So we're going to do 12 squared minus 4 times A, which is
2
times
negative 13.
-13. So plug that into a calculator and tell me what your answer is.
I got 248.
Why would you be the worst person to get
Is that right?
Is it 248? Someone else confirm. Okay, 248. Okay, so is 248 greater than 0, equal to 0, or less than 0?
Greater.
Greater than 0. Okay, so that automatically tells us we're going to have two real roots. Now, does 248 have a perfect square? Can you take the square root of 248 and get a perfect number? No. Okay, so that makes this one irrational. Okay, now, for 20, let's set this one up. What is B for this one?
16.
So we get 16 squared minus 4 times what's A?
-1.
Times C, what's that? So tell me what that equals. Can someone else confirm that?
I got 0.
So is that greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0? Equal to 0. So that tells me we're going to have how many roots?
1.
So we're going to have one real root, and it will be rational.
How do you know if it's irrational or not?
Rational. So what made this one here irrational is because,
Oh, it is a perfect square. And not a perfect square.
yeah. So, Ramsey, what was the square root of 248? Did you do that?
I did, but I cleared it.
262.
Yeah.
2 root 62. Because that's 2 root 62, that makes it an irrational number. Whereas here, you're going to have the square root of 0 is 0. So it's not going to change anything. That's why it makes it rational. All right. Now, for number 21, okay, or for the first 21, I did 2 of them accidentally. I don't know how that happened, but it's fine. Is that in standard form? No. Okay, to get it in standard form, I have to take and move that 10x. How would I move that 10x? Subtract it. Okay, so I'm going to say minus 10x on both sides. So I get negative 4x squared minus 10x plus 84.
Because you don't add it to the x squared, so you just throw it in there?
Yeah, you just put it in there because it's not got any like terms. And we just put it in the order of x squared, x constant. Now, we're going to do our discriminant. What is b? So do negative 10 squared minus 4 times what's a? Times c. Which, what does that equal?
I got 1,444.
1,444. Is that greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0? Greater than 0. So that tells me we're going to have 2 real roots. Now, what's the square root of that?
38.
So the square root of 1,444 is 38. Because of that, it makes it rational. Can you stop?
That was it the first time. That was stop.
All right, for 22, okay, what is our B?
0.
So we do 0, B, 0 squared minus 4 times
3 times 24.
times 24 equals what? You get a calculator and do it. Don't just go.
We got negative 280.
Okay, negative 280. Okay, so 288. Did somebody confirm that? Okay. Now, is that greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0?
Less than 0.
So that is less than 0. So what that causes to happen is it's going to have 2 imaginary roots.
Can we see like why we have that?
So if we look at the square root of negative 288, we have to split that into negative 1 times the square root of 288. What's the square root of negative 1? What's the square root of 288? Use one of those calculators.
12, 2 root, whatever you say.
12 square root 2?
Yeah.
12 square root 2. So we would have 12i times the square root of 2. So we get an imaginary number in there because of the negative.
Well, why 2?
Because we have to have, like, so y'all remember yesterday from the video just a little bit when it talked about the fundamental theorem of algebra and how if the power is 2, it's going to have 2 roots. So what happens in all of these is they all technically have 2 roots. The difference is whenever you have one real root, it's just saying like x plus 1 squared. It's the same root twice. And that's what's different. But you only have to solve one number. All right, now, I want us to go ahead and look at the quadratic formula with complex solution sections. So this section is us actually using the quadratic formula. So I want us to here at the start, we're going to put in here what the quadratic formula is. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay? The quadratic formula is the most important piece of information for you to remember during this test. Okay? Now, the second thing that's important, okay, what is I equal to? Square root? Yeah. If we can remember those two things for this test, we will be in good shape. Am I going to give you these two things?
No.
You have to remember them, okay? So I want us to go ahead and look at number 21. So for 21, what is A?
1.
What is B? What is C?
3.
So now we set up x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So we got to plug in. When we go to plug in, it should be negative. What goes first?
3.
Plus or minus the square root of
3 squared.
3 squared minus 4 times
1.
times
3.
divided by 2 times
1.
1. So for the next part, we do x is equal to, that gives us negative 3 plus or minus the square root of. On your calculator, the only part you need to type in all at once is this part. Do not put in the square root, okay? Your square root, if it is negative, it will cause your calculator to automatically error and you have to enter it in a second time. So what you need to do is just enter this part all on its own. That part that is the discriminant, enter it by itself. So do b squared minus 4ac into your calculator. And it's what? Negative 3. Divided by 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, from here, we're going to simplify that square root. So we're going to break it into the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 3. What is the square root of negative 1? Which is ah. Can I take the square root of 3? Woo.
Hit the poor mom.
So it'll be the square root of 3. And then how would I write that?
Wait, why is it negative?
I.
Okay, because we have to, that is negative 3 right there. So we have to break it into negative 1 and positive 3. Because we can only take the square root of negative 1. So we get I root 3. So we can rewrite this as x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus I root 3 divided by 2. Can I simplify any of this part? Nope. So that is our solution.
On the test, is going to be stuff like this answer, but we're going to be able to simplify it.
Yeah, we're going to have some practice like that too.
Because it's a mock.
Why would we
They
distribute
don't just dust
plus
on
and
themselves.
minus?
They move.
Mocks collect dust.
Do
I
they?
don't.
On their wings, like when they're
That's a
flying around,
special
'cause, like,
kind of dust.
it's like-
That's what moths have. That there's a special coating that lets them fly.
Exactly. See, so there is.
But they're not collecting it from the air.
Yeah, I don't think by him.
Oh, I thought that's how. I thought
All right, anyways.
No, I thought that.
All right. So for 23, okay, what is A?
1.
What is B? What is C?
10.
So we're going to set up the quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So when I go to plug in, we are going to have what? It'll be negative
Negative negatives.
negative 6, plus or minus the square root of minus 4 times 10 divided by 2 times. All right. Now, we get x equals negative and a negative make positive 6 plus or minus the square root of, what is this value? Negative 4. All over 2.
Hey, when you said you have to like rewrite all again, what did you say?
Which part?
You said if you put it in the calculator.
Oh, so you only need to put in the inside of the square root into your calculator. Yeah. Because the square root, you'll have the chance of it erroring, and if it errors, you're going to have to retype the whole thing anyway. So we get negative 4. Now, we have to simplify that square root, okay? We have square root of negative 4. So we're going to break that into the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. What's the square root of negative 1? What's the square root of 4? And so we get 2i. Yep. So we get x is equal to 6 plus or minus 2i divided by 2.
Wait, so if
Yes. Okay.
if it's a square root, the I goes
First.
If it's not.
Second. Okay. The I always comes after the real part unless you have a square root. Then it has to go in front of it. Now, can we simplify any part of this? What can go into 6, 2, and 2? 2. So, we get x is equal to, what is 6 divided by 2?
3.
Plus or minus, what's 2 divided by 2?
1.
So we get 1i
Over 1.
or just 1. And then it is over 1. Do we need to divide by 1?
No.
Dividing by 1 doesn't change anything, so that is our answer. And if you need to put the 1 there to make it make sense, put it there. Yeah. Okay, so when we do this, okay, we essentially take out the thing that's in common with all of them. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Plus or minus 2i divided by 2 is just 1i, or I. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1. That is the same thing as saying 3 plus or minus I.
Oh my God, why do y'all keep moving?
So if you left it like you did in the beat, would you get it wrong?
You would not have it completely correct. So you would have partial credit for what you have, but it would not go all the way through. Boys, whatever y'all are doing, stop. Y'all are being very annoying today, you 4.
What am I doing?
You're being next to them. Yes.
Still solve that.
Yeah, it is. It's different to squares.
So I would make this 2x squared.
Or, I can't tell you. All right. Now let's go ahead and flip to the back, please. Okay. So again, back here, we are doing the quadratic formula. Okay. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. I'm going to let you do 26 and 27. All right. So for these, okay, all 4 of the ones on the back have one particular thing in common. All right. So what they have in common is that none of them are in standard form. So we're going to have to move them to standard form first. So for number 24, we have to take and move those here. So how would I move negative 9?
Why can't you just
And 9.
Hmm?
why can't you just move the 12 to that?
Because
We-
the 0 looks better on that side.
It does, but we try to leave the x squared positive if we can. All right, so we're going to move this over here. So how would I move negative 9?
Plus 9.
Plus 9. How would I move 12x?
Minus 12x.
So we get 12x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. You can move it the other way, but once you move it the other way, you'll still have to rearrange the order, so it's about the same amount of work either way. Now, from here, find our A, B, and C. What is A? What is B? What is C? So we set up our quadratic formula. X equals negative B. Aston, Daniel, stop talking. Okay, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. So let's figure out what we plug in. What goes first? So we get negative 12 plus or minus the square root of squared minus 4 times all divided by 2 times 12. So then we get x is equal to a negative and negative makes positive 12 plus or minus the square root. We have to evaluate what's under that square root. So use your calculator and do that. Negative 444. Anybody else confirm that?
240? Oh, 4. I got it. 288.
I got negative 288.
Negative 288.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anna, did you put the negative 12 in parentheses before you squared it? Did you put, you didn't? Okay. So we get negative 288. All right, and now we divide that by 24. So from here, we are going to take and simplify that square root. We have the negative part times 288. What's the square root of negative 1? Use your calculator to simplify the square root of 288. 12 root 2. And so whenever we go to combine those, we get 12I root 2. So we get x is equal to 12 plus 12I root 2 divided by 24. Plus or minus, yes.
Simplify, right?
And we can simplify. What can we take out of all three of those things? Not just 2, we can take out.
Oh, I thought we had to do this.
12.
Too.
No, we do not touch the square root. The square root stays by itself.
Take 12 out.
We can take 12 out. Okay, so when we take out 12, what is 12 divided by 12? So we get 1 plus or minus 1I root 2. And again, if you want to not have the 1 there, you can do that. What is 24 divided by 2? 12. So that is our solution.
So we don't touch the 2 at all.
Yeah, we can't do the square root. It is 2 on the bottom. Good job, y'all. I was just testing y'all. I'm just kidding. I just miswrote it. All right. Okay, we're going to do one more together. Let's do 25 together, okay? Now, for 25, okay, we got to put it in standard form. So what do I need to do? Add 10 to both sides and add 7x to both sides. So we get 3x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. What is A? What is B? What is C? So then we plug into x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So when we plug in,
Oh my goodness.
what goes first? So it should be negative plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times divided by 2 times. So we get x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 71 divided by Okay, now we're going to simplify that square root. So we have the square root of -1 times the square root of 71. What is the square root of -1? Can I take the square root of 71?
No.
So what we get is I root 71. So we have x is equal to -7 plus or minus I root 71 divided by 6. Can I simplify anything there?
No.
So it will just be your solution. All right, I want y'all to work on 26 and 27. I'm going to put the answer up here, okay?